He doesn't do Bitcoin, but he does do bits for coins every weekend. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on the show. Speaking of him, to get it on. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for telling a friend. Thanks for watching my Malibu and Palisades fire vlog. That thing's really been blowing up. You guys have been enjoying it, so you can enjoy that at adamcarolla.com and find it, check it out, spread around. Brad Meltzer is joining us. Brad he's a celebrated author, and now he's the muse, the wind under the wings of so many Americans with his inspirational words. He's got a book out that's different than the kind of books that we know Brad from writing. Stuff about Stalin and Roosevelt and Churchill and whatnot. This is called The Magic, the book of inspiration you didn't know you needed. And it's based on your commencement address that kind of went viral that we talked about last time you were on, I believe. Good to see you, Brad.
Good to see you, brother. Yeah, I was right about at that moment. I got to deliver last year the commencement address at the University of Michigan. And the fun part for me was I went to Michigan. Mm-hmm. So I'm staring out at 70,000 people in the stadium. And I'm focused on one because my son's graduating that day. And and the best part is the university says, show us where your son is and we'll put a camera on him. I'm like, oh yeah, he's the little white Jew. And I'm like, how are you going to find him? Like, you have no chance of finding this kid. But he texted me on stage and said, Dad, I got here early. Him and his friends woke up early. And he said, I'm in the 14th row, and I could see him. Mm-hmm. And I'm focused on my boy. And when I told my son I was going to give the commencement address, Adam, his first words to me were, you? Why you? They have so many better people they could pick. Like, why not Tom Brady? Right. And then he said to me, and this is a direct quote, he said, it's like a 13th seed winning March Madness.
Yeah, I watched the commencement earlier today.
I said, as soon as he said it, I'm like, there's my opening joke. That's the bit. I got it. Thank you.
It was super funny.
And thank you for watching it. But, the whole speech was about magic, right? The book is called Make Magic. It was all about making magic. And if you talk to magicians, there are only 4 types of magic tricks, right? You put aside illusions, escapes, there's 4 types of tricks. 1, you make something appear. 2, you make something disappear. 3, you make 2 things switch places. And the 4th magic trick is you take one thing and you turn it into something else, which is the hardest trick of all, which is transformation. And we can talk about each of the ones, and there's obviously some fun things in there, but it was the 3rd trick that kind of caught me off guard. Because, it's like when you're doing stand-up, when you do a bit, you kind of know where you hope where the jokes are going to land. You can kind of read the audience instantly on what they get. And then there's a new joke you try out, and you don't know if anyone's going to get it or laugh, or you're just like, let's see where it goes, and I'm going to fix this on the fly. And it was about the 3rd magic trick, which is about taking 2 things and making them switch places. Mm-hmm. And I said, here, let's talk about empathy, because that's what empathy is, right? It's switching places with someone else. And I told this story that I never, ever in my professional life, my wife didn't even know the story. But I said, when I was 13 years old, my family lost everything. We had nothing left. We had to go live with my grandmother in Florida. We had to move to Florida, and we moved into her 1-bedroom apartment.
It was a financial thing.
Financial, yeah. My dad just lost everything, and he was bad with money. He had $1,200 to his name, and he couldn't even afford. Those were the days when, we knew you don't answer the door at the end of the month because that's when the rent comes due, and you don't pick up the phone because that's when the bill collectors call. Those days. Mm-hmm. And we were living 6 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment. And everyone in the condo, because it was Florida and they're a pain in the ass, they were all trying to get us evicted. Mm-hmm. And everyone's trying to get us evicted. This one neighbor across the hall saw what was happening to us. And she says, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move out for a couple months. I want you to put your family in my apartment instead. And basically, you're going to have some peace and won't be evicted. Nicest thing to this day anyone's ever done for me or my family. And I remember as a kid, her name was Mircy, but I always heard it as mercy. And make no mistake, mercy and empathy is what she was showing us. And I said, cruelty and venom and harshly judging those we disagree with, it's become sport in our culture. But cruelty and venom are signs of strength, they're signs of weakness and petty insecurity. What takes strength is actually showing some compassion to someone else and showing some kindness to someone else. And in that stadium, Adam, I felt 70,000 people. And, when people kind of clap, you can kind of like keep controlling the crowd. You can kind of talk over them. I couldn't. There's a point you'll see where I start over in the speech and I said, what was that? And my wife said to me, you tapped a vein you didn't know was there. And I didn't even realize it. I just knew. I made a mental note. And I think the culture is just so starving for empathy right now. And when the speech was put out there, all these people started tracking me down. They found my sister's unlisted number. They were like, I want your brother's speech. They were tracking me down. I want the text of that speech. Give me the text of that speech. I want it for my kids, my niece, my nephew for graduation. And I've been doing this 27 years. No one's ever asked me for the text of anything I've ever done. And we were like, what is going on? And the thing just started getting shared. And anyway, we made a book out of it called Make Magic. And it's that book of inspiration you didn't know you needed right now.
Yeah, I'm listening to you, and I'm sort of torn because I feel like we talk about empathy and we talk about helping or not judging, or we talk, but a lot of stuff doesn't really come out the other end. And then I realize personally, I don't talk about anything. I'm not nice to talk to about empathy or feelings or sharing. I help a lot of people. I have helped a lot of people, and I take care of a lot of people, but I don't have any of the warm and the fuzzy trimmings to it at all. And
yeah, but I don't think you need that, though. But I know you well enough to know after all these years. I remember the first time I was on the show, we talked about our parents. Right. And I was telling you these funny stories about my parents' kindness, and you were kind of, one-upping me on like, and my parents did this to me that was like rougher. But you have this thing. I know you help a lot of people behind the scenes. I know that. We've talked about it offline when I was there. But it doesn't have to be warm and fuzzy, right? I think the thing you said about helping people that nobody knows about, that's like the core to me of empathy. What that woman did for me, she didn't go put in, and not that there was Instagram back then, but she didn't tell anybody. She just did something nice because she saw something was going wrong and said, it's time to step up. And to me, that's what we need. It's not about being like, completely like, oh, I got to cry for everyone and worry about everyone and do everything. To me, it's about one person. You be kind to one person, man. That's how you change the whole friggin' world. Because you can't change people. You can't change any of that. If you're trying to change people, go bang your head against the wall. It's better.
Well,
but going and just being nice, man, that's unstoppable to me.
So this brings us to this, and just as an example, I'll bring it up once in a while. But I help people, but I don't look at myself as a generous or kind person per se. And then I realize I forget about it most all the time. And I'll have two things. Like the one that keeps coming back to me is I have a friend, a very old friend. And he'll call me, I don't know, once a year. And he goes, I'm calling you. I'm thanking you. And I always go, what for? What's going on? And he goes, I've been sober for 12 years and it was on this date. And I go, oh, okay, good. But why are you telling me? And he goes, you paid for my rehab. And I go, oh, all right. Well, I forgot, but good. And then
and that's same thing. I guarantee you, Mircy she didn't think it was that big a deal. She's like, whatever, I'll go live with my brother, right? She's like, I'm going to live with my brother for a couple, whatever, and they'll take my apartment. But for us, the recipient of that kindness, like, I know there's some, whether it's a teacher or a mentor or somebody, that someone who just did that thing to you, you're like, man, that was just, I was at my lowest, they were at their high, and that transfer happened. There was this woman, this is actually a story, it's a second magic trick because it keeps going, right? Is when I was working in high school, I always had to work for money. And for 4 years, I used to scoop ice cream at the Haagen-Dazs in the Aventura Mall. And this woman, I remember, she comes up to me, starts snapping her fingers at me. She's screaming at me. She's like, you need to help me right now. And I'm like, ma'am, I'll be right with you. And she says, no, you got to help me now. And I said, you know what, ma'am, you're being rude. I'm not going to help you. Take your business elsewhere. And I'll never forget, Adam, she screams in my face, you're going to be working at this miserable ice cream store for the rest of your miserable life. And I calmly looked at her in the face and I said, ma'am, if I am working here for the rest of my miserable life, you're still never getting any ice cream. And I'm telling that story because I used to think and laugh about that and be like, oh, that woman didn't bother me. But it totally bothered me. right? And because I was worried that I was going to have the financial struggles my dad had. He always struggled, and I was worried I was going to repeat life like that. But I also realized that woman who, again, she'll never remember me, has no idea who I am, what I did, I carry that woman with me 30 years now. And that woman drives me. That woman fueled me. And to me, it's the second magic says, don't make something disappear, but not your fear. You got to use your fear and harness it, and don't vanquish your critics, prove them wrong. And to me, again, I'm saying that because it's exactly what you're just saying. Those moments that are so you don't even remember that it was that was his day of rehab. But for him, he's carried that with him every single year. Every coin he gets, he's thinking, man, Adam is the one who got me this coin.
Yeah, I had my Guatemalan nanny say to me years ago, she goes, I think I'm going to sell my Camry. What do you think I can get for it? And I go, I don't know. I don't know. Why would I know what you can get for it? And she goes, you bought it for me. And I was like, oh, all right.
You know what I love? I love that all the kindness that you put out there, that you just bury it. That's a good, dark little part of you.
Yeah.
You do bury it. I wonder what's the way? I got to know. So what's the nicest thing that you do remember someone did for you?
I had a life that was pretty much devoid of kind gestures in my direction. I could have used a hand a time or two. I had a couple opportunities. I remember when I was maybe a year on a job site, probably 19 or 20, kind of making $8 an hour, mostly doing kind of donkey work. There was a plumber, and he was a bald guy, and he showed up in his truck, and he was making, $30 an hour, some ungodly amount of money. And he saw that I was working hard. I was always working hard, on my feet, just moving and everything. And his name was Zapata. And he came up to me and he went, I had this great business and I lost it all. And I started drinking and blah, blah, blah. But now I'm sober and I'm looking for an apprentice. And you're that guy. I can tell you're that guy. And I'll teach you plumbing. And in a year, you'll be making $18 an hour. And in 5 years, you'll be making $30 an hour. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And then he was like, but don't say anything around the job sites. I don't want the foreman finding out that you're cherry picking me. And he's like, no, but I'm forming this business and I'm coming back strong and you're going to be my guy. And I'm like, I'll be your guy. Teach me plumbing. This will be awesome. And I don't know, a few weeks went by, and I'd call him hey, when we getting started now, Zapata? And he'd be like, soon. It never happened. It never happened.
You crushed the end of the story.
It never happened. He never turned back. He probably started drinking again. And I had I had a lot of bad luck and bad will and just sort of bad stuff for a long time, a long time. My immediate family was that way. I didn't have any luck. I had a couple of coaches. I had a couple football coaches or something say something, good that kind of stuck. Didn't do anything, but said a couple of things where I went, that felt good. But I really didn't. I avoided luck and charity of all kinds. I got pretty much battered. I'm one of the few guys I know who's had 4 motorcycles towed, for instance. That probably shouldn't have had 3 of them towed. It's just bad, poor, downtrodden, bad roommates, cars towed, motorcycles towed, bad stuff. And then I met Jimmy Kimmel, and then he's like, well, it's all going to change now. And I was like, I've been waiting for a while.
That is definitely, that's the one that I was thinking of, but I didn't know if there was one. Again, to me, I don't know. That's the grand gesture, right? That's a grand, massive change.
I saved it. It's I saved all the incremental, nice gestures, all the stuff, the tips or the that-a-boys or whatever. It's I literally from 0 to 30, nothing but bad shit luck. And then I met Jimmy, and it was like a millionaire 18 months later. Like I saved it all up for one big move.
You banked them all. That was a good use. That was a good take out of the bank moment. But I do think, let me say it this way. I actually think, I think if we start saying, oh, what's the grand gesture have to be? It's impossible. Because we're just like, I don't have time. We don't have time for the grand gesture. I think it's more fascinating that the people who thank you are thanking you for that thing that you don't even think of, right? It's like, I think the grandest, most powerful thing you can do on the planet is to say thank you to someone, especially someone who helped you long ago. Like, I'll tell you the story. My whole family had shit luck their whole life. New York kicked our ass. Everything went wrong in my family. And then when I was in high school, I wound up in, there were teachers that were just, they were like, my dad was so angry at this teacher that was so mean to me that I got in trouble for talking mouthing off. And my dad jumped the desk to punch the vice principal in the face. And I'm holding back my father. So it was a forever, my dad would throw, we were a fighting family. And so school was crap for me. Everything was bad. And then I get to 9th grade, and this one teacher, Sheila Spicer, this black woman who loved Prince, who used to tell everyone, she would say, if you say you had to go to the bathroom, she would say, I got rubber bands for the boys and plugs for the girls.
Wow.
Which used to mess with my head. I was like, how did girl physiology work? Like, had no idea. And so she said to me, she said, you can write. And I was like, well, everyone can write. And she says, no, you know what you're doing. She tried to put me in some honors class, had some sort of conflict. So she said, here's what we're going to do. You're going to sit in the corner for the entire year. Ignore everything I do on the blackboard. Ignore every homework assignment I give. You're going to do the honors work instead. You'll thank me later. And a decade later, my first book comes out, my first novel. I knock on the door to her classroom. She says, can I help you? I said, my name is Brad Meltzer. I wrote this book and it's for you. And she starts crying. And I'm like, why are you crying? And she's like, I was going to retire this year, she says, because I didn't think I was having an impact anymore.
Wow.
And I said, are you kidding? You got 30 students. We have one teacher. And we become close again. And I send her a free book. Make Magic comes out to every book I write comes out. She gets it free. She wound up lasting 12 more years after she said she was going to retire. And at the end, when she goes to retire, here's the key of the story. Is I go back. Someone tells me, your teacher's retiring. So we're throwing a retirement party. You got to come send her off. I'm like, great. I want to go see her. So I go to this. It was at the racetrack, which is like I'm like, why is the teacher's retirement party at the racetrack? But I go to the racetrack and here in Florida. And it's in this restaurant where, truthfully, it's Friday at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. They give her a crystal something. All she has to do is take the crystal something, say to the people, it's a jaded bunch of teachers, and say on a Friday afternoon, I hate half of you. I love half of you. Have a good life. And I sneak in. She doesn't know I'm there. She has no idea I'm surprising her. And I'm thinking to myself, when you do that and you go back and say thank you, you kind of risk the memory. Because I'm like, what if she's not who I remember? What if she's like jaded now? What if she sucks? What if that ruins my whole memory, my little perfect story, the whole bullshit thing I've created for myself? And I'm hiding there, waiting to be the final surprise after they give her her crystal thing. And she looks out at this group of teachers. I'll never forget it. Not knowing I'm there, and says, listen, I'm leaving. You'll never see me again. But I'm just going to tell you, for those of you who think that kids have changed or that it's harder now or the kids are different now, she's like, no, it's you that's changed. You're getting old. Do not give up on these kids. Do not give up on these kids. She gives a speech like the end of Braveheart. Like, I want to pull a sword and go sign up to be a teacher. And I'm like, oh shit, this woman is forever that person. And when you go say thank you, like you use that thank you, man, I'm telling you, anyone listening now, whatever old teacher or mentor, that camp counselor that told, I don't even care if they didn't have to do something nice. They told you were good at something. Go say thank you and watch what comes from it. And if they're dead, find their kid and tell them what their parent meant to you. Because my father, when he died, I got this idea. My father used to coach baseball because we're a big sports family. And when he died, this guy called me up. I've never told the story about my father. And this guy calls me up and he says, hey man, I saw your dad died in the paper. I'm like, yeah. And he said, I got to tell you the story about you. You know what I remember about him? And he's like, I'm like, what? And he's like, when I was 8, 9 years old in Little League, he told me, you throw like a pussy. And I remember being like, my dad should not be saying that. to like 8, 9-year-old kids. And by the way, I wasn't even 8 or 9 at that point. He was just coaching for fun. He had no kid in the league. He just loved baseball. And I said to him, I'm sorry, my dad said that. He goes, no, I did throw like a pussy. Like, and I was just like, and that story gave me the greatest thing I ever got that year, which was a new story about my father. And I was like, dude, that is magic. Thank you for that. So go say thank you. I'm telling you, whether it's for Jimmy or whoever it might be, you'll see what comes from it.
Yeah, I've thanked Jimmy on way more than one occasion, for sure. And I think back on all the teachers I had, and I didn't have anybody help me or pull me aside. I got pulled aside by Mrs. Commissar. It's the only time I didn't have a counselor that said anything. It was weird because people say to me frequently, especially if you become a comedian, did people always encourage you to go up on stage, or did your teacher, your counselor say you're funny? I was like, no, nobody in my family, no teacher, no counselor, nobody ever. I dug ditches for a living for a reason because nobody told me to do comedy ever. But Mrs. Commissar is the only teacher I ever had. She was at North Hollywood High, and she was very old. And she pulled me aside. It was the only pull-aside moment I ever had with a teacher. And she said to me, she goes, Adam, all the girls like you, and you're a real funny guy. And I was already thinking, I don't know where she gets this. I've seen no indication of all the girls like me, but whatever. She just said that. And then she paused and she goes, do your parents beat you? And I said, no. By the way, my parents, first of all, I could kick my dad's ass when I was 11, but my parents were the furthest away. I'm the only person I know that's never been struck by a parent. I'm the only person I know who's been hit by friends' parents more than my own parents. Most people don't have that ratio. I've been hit by Grandpa Al Lewis and Roberta Messick and never by Chris Carolla or Jim Carolla. So that's a weird ratio to actually physically been struck by
that's a different skill set you're using.
Right. But no, it was never discussed, and it's weird.
What was the end of when she asked you that? What was the end of the story?
Well, I realized as she was asking me that, I realized that she had come to that conclusion, and she'd also decided she was right, and that if I protested too vigorously, she would think I was lying. Like if I went like, no, never. Who told you that? Like she'd go, oh, okay, this kid's getting beaten at home. I don't know where she got it from. I didn't show up,
it's so interesting
with a black eye.
Teachers, but teachers see that stuff. Like there are teachers that read those things. And I could tell that one comment of you by all the girls like you as clearly that holds spot in your brain for years, right? Because now you've got to replay what girls does she know about that I don't know about.
I'll tell you what it was. What I figured out. I had a look. There's certain eras in time where there's an aesthetic and it's this, it's that. I had a look that appealed to the girls' moms, but not to the girls. And so the girl, anyone over 50 was attracted to me, but their daughters weren't. But they had some look like a bygone era thing. And I remember I've done it. I mean, there was a Korean girl in my neighborhood that I just thought was like stunning and played the piano and everything else. And I don't know, she kind of liked my son when he was 11 or something. I was like, you ought to hang out with her. She's beautiful. And everyone looked kind of, you go, what? Nah, I'm not into that. And I go, what do you mean? And after a while, I started sounding like a weirdo, but I was like, she plays the piano. She's so beautiful. And I realized I'm into her. She's not. He's not into her. And I think that's kind of, I knew I had some appeal with the older set. So when she was kind of telling me that, I was kind of thinking about the moms who
it's so because I think that teachers my wife who went to my same high school, I tell my story, and she's like, I had that same teacher. She didn't do, none of that. I don't have any of that story. And I said to her, you have all. She's like, you have these stories, not with a lot of teachers, but with a couple here and there that just were like, you should do this, you should do that. And I said to her, I finally realized, it took me like decades to realize, like, they did it for me because they didn't do it for my wife because they knew she didn't need help. They looked at me and they're like, this kid needs help. The one thing, and I don't think every teacher knows
they
this,
saw really something in you. It wasn't a mercy mission. Right. They saw that you could write.
Right, but there are a lot of kids who can write, but there's also ones they know, like, this kid's not going to get to, like, I'm the first in my immediate family to go to a 4-year college. Right. I was not going there without teachers going, here, you need to take the SAT. I'm like, what's the SAT? I had no idea. And I'm like, someone's like, you taking the SAT? I'm like, I don't know what it is, but if you're taking it, I'm taking it. And so those teachers knew I needed the help, and so they helped me. And like on that day, your teacher saw something that was like, this kid needs something, whatever it might be. Maybe it's like to have sex with a 50-year-old woman is what she thought you thought you were reading it as, but like she saw something that you were struggling with, and I don't think she read it wrong, right? It wasn't physical abuse, but it was some other loneliness thing that you have that you were looking for and searching for, and whatever it was, man, that teacher was trying to pull it out.
She saw something. It ended up just sort of depressing me more because I was like, oh, that's what you think?
Right. Well, that's the thing is when someone's wrong, you're like if you're writing, you say you can write. I'm like, well, then I'm good. But if it's like, are you beaten and you're not, you're like, what am I projecting and carrying around?
Well, no one else ever brought it up. I mean, it wasn't like anyone ever thought it. And it was weird because I was like a pretty big guy, and I was like, I don't know how she arrived there.
By the way, that's why the older moms liked you. If you were whoever the biggest kid in the class is. We had a kid in our high school. There were 2 kids that were just taller and bigger than everyone else, where we looked, they were varsity and we were all JV. Like, that's just how it was. And that is a huge difference for like, that all the moms are like, who's that?
It's an aesthetic. So just to drill down on it, because I've given it some thought. We had eras like in the 50s and the 60s where like big macho captain of the football team, He-Man. And then we entered our sort of scrawny punk rock or Davy Jones, kind of Keith Partridge, kind of waif model era. We were in the waif model era when I was the captain of the football team. And so the women from the days of yore were into the captain of the football team, but the young girls were into the waif model punk rock guy. Which I was not.
By the way, I'm obsessed with that because I look at it, I keep it going, like, and then comes the 80s and you get Schwarzenegger and it's like all muscles. And then it's like, no, sexy as Matt Damon. We don't want the muscles anymore. We want the smaller version. Right. Like, I'm obsessed with why the zeitgeist has to shift to, and because I don't think it's just a fashion look or like it's how we view men. It's how we view, there's just something of like what is considered sexy.
You're right.
Like,
but
why? And I get the Reaganism of it all, right? That makes sense in those times. But like, why does that go away?
There's I mean, a lot of it is luck of the draw. I mean, you can just pick up a subject like hair. Hair, when people had feathered back hair and Leif Garrett and Charlie's Angels and Farrah Fawcett and stuff with hair, feathered, cool beach guy hair was a huge deal when I was in junior high. If you had a Jufro like me, you couldn't do it, and you're already screwed. I have these weird thoughts, and I'll put my homoerotic cards on the table here because I was thinking about this the other day. And I did a documentary about Paul Newman, and I have all his race cars, and I race all his race cars. So I have it sort of qualified to speak about Paul Newman. I remember watching, Butch and Sundance and Newman and Redford, and then The Sting, and, it's Newman and Redford. And you make a doc about them, and you talk to people, and you talk to people now, and they're like, God, Paul Newman, man, he was so handsome with those blue eyes, and he was such a leading man, like he was so good looking, And I remember thinking, because it was the 70s, I remember as a kid going, well, Robert Redford's really good looking, but Paul Newman isn't, because Paul Newman had brillowy hair and Redford had this blonde. I mean, you know, they do Butch Cassidy at Sundance Kid in 1973, but it looks like he just stepped out of a Malibu beach. You know what I mean? Just this blonde, flowing hair, you know? And I was like, that guy's so good looking, and the other guy's not good looking. It was only because one guy had cool hair, and it was 1973, and it was all hair. Now, bald, Brillo head, who cares?
Right. But you know what? I talked to a friend who's a linguist at Georgetown, and she said to me, linguistically, like, that is what every generation has to do, is separate themselves from. That's how we separate ourselves. We do it with any way we can express, and it's music, and it's our hair, and it's our fashion, and it's our slang. Like, that's why, you know, whatever the Gen Z slang is right now that you and I roll our eyes at, like, but it's their way of saying I'm not you. And all those things, whether it's the flare of your jeans or what kind of shoes you wear, it's not just that it's fashion, but it's, if you look at it from an evolution perspective, it's our way of saying, I don't want to be you, and I'm going to put you aside.
Right.
Like in the 50s, there was a word, you know, the word that became popular wasn't invented there, but it became in use, was the word teenager. It was never used before the 50s. Mm-hmm. And the reason, what used to happen is, you used to have people who were, whatever, if your dad was a butcher, you became a butcher. Your dad was a baker, you became the baker, right? Do construction. And then suburbs started being built in the 60s, and people started moving out to the suburbs. And what happened there is they got better schools. They got huge education. And once that education shift happened, all of a sudden people are like, I don't want to be my dad's butcher job. I don't want to be a baker. And then they're also like, and I don't want to listen to his crap music. And here's Elvis, and here's the Beatles. We just did a book on the Beatles. Like, and I don't want my dad's president either. I don't want to have Eisenhower or Nixon. I want this guy JFK. Like, all those things are the same as like slang, the same as hair, the same as, it's our way of saying, I don't want to be you anymore. That was a huge generational shift from the 50s to the 60s. Was that it was like a knife through culture.
I was trying to be fair-minded about thinking about, like, well, who's done stuff, where, like, what breaks, who should I thank, and that kind of stuff. But yeah. I think I don't think that many people, because I have proof, which is when I was in high school, I had scholarship offers to play football in college. Not big football powerhouses like your own Michigan, but good schools like UC Davis and Cal Poly Pomona and San Luis Obispo and some places, good places. No one ever said anything to me. Like, my counselor never said, like, we should do the paperwork and see what they want. I wasn't going to do anything. No one in my family did it. I literally had papers sent, scholarship stuff sent to me. I never answered it. And Mr. Tomey, my counselor, never said, hey, you got Cal Poly Pomona here. Maybe you could go for free. We got to fill out some paperwork and stuff, but we should do that. I never had a conversation with anyone about it. I have the letters, and weirdly,
that's crazy to me.
Isn't that weird?
But I will say, it is. First of all, it is weird. Yes, no, that's a weird thing. Like, that's the job. You do the job. Pomona's a crazy good sports school to do that. I know kids that play there now. But I will say, though, is I'll make this wager. If I said to anyone listening now who you've helped to come thank you, I bet you the thank yous will pour. I bet you if you put on, I just know it. Sadly, we usually wait till our obituaries, are written, and you never get to hear all the nice shit that people say about you, right, when they give you your eulogies. But there are going to be people, and you see it now when someone dies, you're like, this person on this day did this thing for me. I know you well enough to know there are just all these people that you've blacked it out. You're like, you don't care, but I know you've helped so many people along the way. And that's the magic part, right? Like that, the fact that you didn't even learn the magic trick and no one did the magic trick to you, but you do it to other people. Dude, I'm even more impressed by that, because it's easy when someone does something nice for me, it's easy to be like, I got to pay back the universe. To me, it's much harder to go through your experience and be like, wow, no one taught me to do that thing, but I'm going to learn how to do that thing.
Well, here's what I think, I guess. It's kind of how I parent. If somebody comes up to you and sort of asks you for something, you should really do everything you can to accommodate them and their ask. I will try I didn't get that as a kid, but like I remember as a parent, sometimes I'd be like sitting in my office. It'd be 10, 15 at night. Like I'd be in my bathrobe and my daughter would like come in and go, "Can I practice some driving?" And I'd go, "When?" "Tonight." And I'd go, what do you want to do?" "Well, just get in the car and we'll go over the hill to whatever." And I'd just go, "Yeah, all right, let me get my sweatpants on." And I would just do it because it was like, all right, that's what she wants. And I'll try to accommodate her. And if somebody...
I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's that's what she wants. I think the average person who lives your life, who has that done to them, it's like we were talking about before, about if you get punched in the face by your dad, the odds are you're going to punch your kid in the face. That's just how violence works. Like my father used to get punched in the face by his father. My grandfather, and in fact, my grandfather was struck by lightning.
Wow.
In World War II, he was struck by lightning in World War II, and that's how he got discharged from the military. And we have the paperwork, the documents, the everything, the burns across his body.
Crazy.
He was a boxer in the military, and he used to beat up my father. And my father also got struck by lightning, which was a story my dad used to always tell us. And we were like, "I'm telling you, do not be with me in a rainstorm." Like, and the truth is my dad always told us that story because we were like, is that a little bit of a bullshit story? Like, I would be like, "Okay, Dad, sure you did." He would tell us he was at Camp Neshopa and the thing, and he grabbed the metal doorknob, and the lightning bolt came through it, knocked him out. They covered him in a white sheet. They thought he was dead, and then he sat up and everyone screamed. And I was like, good story, but I don't know, Dad. The odds of two people in a generation being struck by lightning was a little bit of bullshit. So when my father passes away, I tell the story at his funeral. I'm like, my dad was struck by lightning. His father was struck by lightning. I don't know if it's true, but for purposes of this good metaphor, I'm going to use it. And I use it because my grandfather used to punch my dad in the face, and he was a boxer. And my father should have truthfully punched me in the face. Like that's just how violence goes down generation after generation. And if you came to my house when we were in Brooklyn growing up, every door and every wall, every door to like the bathroom, his bedroom had a hole punched in it, a dent through it, like right to the drywall, except for my room that I share with my sister. It was the only door that was untouched. And because he was just always like, "I'm going to be a little better than my father was." And the truth is that should never happen. Like what you're doing should never happen. If you were taught like, if you got all the lack of help you have, you should just repeat it. So I don't think it's just that you're listening to your daughter. I think you're doing it because you're doing what my dad did, which is like, I got to do something better. And I will tell you, the end of the story is I put my dad's eulogy online on our Instagram, Facebook page, whatever it was back in the day when he died. And this guy writes me, talk about going and saying thank you. And he said, "Hey, Brad, you don't know me, but I saw you don't know that story of your dad being true when he got struck by lightning, but I'm going to tell you it was true, and I know that because I was there that day."
Wow.
And the guy proceeds to tell me the story with details I didn't have in the eulogy about that day, including how he says, "I was struck too. I had my hand on his shoulder. They put white sheets on us. They thought we were dead, and we sat." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, he knows the whole friggin' story." And the point is I think lightning it can strike in the same spot. But I don't think in your case, it's just because you were like, "Oh, I'm listening to my daughter." It's something, not to get all like bullshitty Freudian about it, but there's something that you're doing that you're changing the course of that river. And
well,
that's not easy.
I agree. And I appreciate the kudos, but I don't think it's rocket science. I had a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't like growing up. I didn't like a whole bunch of stuff about my environment. Physically, I didn't like not having air conditioning. I didn't like broken down cars. I didn't like depressed parents. I didn't like any of it. And I consciously said, I'm not going to do any of this stuff that made me miserable with this new set of people called my kids intentionally. And I never thought of it as that magnanimous or that interesting or rocket science. I just looked at it as, well, surely you'll do the opposite of what you hated growing up. And I am surprised that more people, that thing where, the girl's dad was an alcoholic, and so she married the alcoholic, of course, and
Right.
it's always like
so
really,
obvious.
I mean, you of all people should know the horrors of
Right,
being
you should
married
know
to an
better.
alcoholic.
But by the way, how often does that happen, right? How often does the abusive kid go to the abusive relationship? How much does, I mean, and again, I'm not saying it's magnanimous and, here's your Nobel Prize, Mr. Carolla, but it's sad that we've reached a point where, like, I maybe we just set the bar so low for ourselves, but I don't know, it's a big deal, man. It's a big deal. It's a big deal to break the train that you're on and do something new. To me, I should have struggled like my father struggled, like his father struggled. I mean, it was a generational Jew thing, right? That's just how it went.
I think you have a kind of intelligence that probably prevents you from getting mired. I always say some people just don't have the mental horsepower to pull themselves out of sort of the mire. You know what I mean? And I do think if you have a kind of, high horsepower mental engine, we don't have to call it book smart, street smarts, whatever you want to call it, but just smart. Like a smart kind of helps you not do stupid stuff like over and over again, and I
appreciate that. I
believe that works
appreciate
for
that.
you.
No, I appreciate that, but I will say, like, I think my street smarts are not, and I think I think your survival skills, they're not things that we develop because we were like, we want this or that. They were needs. You had real friggin' needs that were not met. I had real, as a kid, huge need. Like, my parents would tell me shit about our financial situation that they should never have told me. They should have never told me at 13 years old, like, what kind of crapville we're in and who wants to beat my father up and who's coming for him. Like, don't tell your kid that.
I
like,
completely
my sister and I
agree.
still laugh, like, but they put that on you and they put that on me. Listen, from the first time I met you, we've always, bonded over that. Like, but I do believe that need to find that skill set, you can harness it and just do this. I don't want to understate it, man, because it doesn't happen to everyone. There are so many people who just, whatever, your dad does this and you do that. And I think the hardest thing to do is to break out of that thing you were taught your whole life. You can't underestimate what a huge deal that is.
I have a last question for you, Brad, because I was talking to Dr. Drew about it. And he brought it up, but it's something I've been bringing up to him a lot, on the mic, off the mic. But something. The way I work is I kind of float around. I don't read articles and I don't listen to lectures. I just kind of float around and try to feel what's next and where we're heading and which way the wind is blowing. And I've been right about a few things. And I've been saying for a long time, what's with all the talk? You know what I mean? Where people, but it's a political thing. It's a little more of a feminine thing. It's now kind of a universal thing where they, you hear Nancy Pelosi, she does the interview. She tells it's all about the children. She loves the children. She got into this for the children and the children, and everyone deserves a seat at the table and they need to be treated with dignity. Everybody needs to be treated with dignity. Everyone needs to be treated with respect. And I'm like, stop talking. I want some action. Like, do something. Yeah. And then I realize, the talking satiates. And I've been saying this for a long time, and people look at me sort of cross-eyed, and I realize that I grew up with these people. I've learned a lot of lessons. My mom, my grandmother, it was all talk about the people and what they needed and how come they're not getting enough. They didn't do jack shit for anyone, ever. But they talked about it constantly, and I was like, you guys talk about it so much that you're actually satiated by the talk, even though you've never done anything for these people that you speak of, And I realized, I think we're getting into that era where everyone is just, celebrities do it, politicians do it. It's just talk about how much they care and how much they weep for the children of the people of this and that. And then they just go back behind their double-gated community and open up their Sub-Zero refrigerator and get some more Haagen-Dazs, But I'm like, it's a weird talk era we're in, a satiation talk. And, when you're talking about thanking the person and doing it, that makes a big difference. But I now realize we're talking about talk so much, it's as if we've done it. And there is a part and more in the feminine mind than the masculine mind, where saying you talked about something sort of gives you some satiation, some feeling like you did do it. You know, like my family, my mom and my grandmother didn't do anything for the poor people, but they talked about them so much that they actually, I think, felt like they did something for the poor people, and sort of walked through life going, don't look at me, I take care of the poor people. It's like, you don't do anything. You just talk about them constantly.
Yeah, I have listen, I friggin' applaud you on it. I have no patience for the talk. None. My grandmother and grandfather had nothing. I mean, they were poor, not middle class. They were poor. And I remember my grandfather, when we were little, I had to be, 10, 11 years old because he died right after. And he took all of our toys that were crappy to begin with. And I remember he took them outside, and I thought we were going to throw them away. Right? He goes, no, I don't want to throw these away. And he went outside in Brooklyn, and he went to we were on a stoop that we had to share. They share with another family in a kind of like share stoop thing. Knocked on the door, and there was this kid, Morty. And Morty comes over, and he was my age, maybe a year younger. And he said, these are for you. And this kid, he knew Morty had less than we did, like, right, when you're nothing. And this kid, Morty, I will never for the life of me forget this kid being so excited with my beat up crap. And I remember being like, my grandfather, who has nothing and can't donate shit and can't help anyone, always wanted to be a cop, but he just couldn't pass the physical. Like, this guy just helped somebody with nothing. And my grandmother, to her dying day, she lived till like 90, to her dying day, would every year send a donation to the hospital that took care of my grandfather when he died. And her donation was a check for $1.
Wow.
Not to be cute, because that's all she had. $1 every year. And I'd be like, Nanny, what are you doing? And to me, that is more important. Your thing with helping that one guy in rehab, like, I just don't think the world changes by talking about it. I don't think the world changes from politicians pontificating. Or, like, the world changes by going and connecting with one person and doing something. If you don't do it, then what the hell? You've done nothing. And I do think you're right. We're at this situation where we feel like we put a performative thing on our social media, a blue square, a black square, an orange square, or whatever square. We wear a pin, we've done it. We put out a tweet, we've done it. We've done that's bullshit. Like, writing something on social media does nothing. And that's the way we communicate now. So that's our badge now, is I retweeted the thing that said we should donate to this or complain about that. Like, bullshit, you haven't done anything. So yeah, that's why my thing was like, don't, like, go to the person. Take the action, and that kindness. I really believe kindness is an act. It's not a talk. It's an action. And go help that one person. Go say thank you to that person. Make an actual action. And to me, that's how you do some good in the world. That's how you make magic, man.
Make Magic, the book of inspiration you didn't know you needed. Brad Meltzer. Come back anytime. Always a great conversation with you, Brad. I love following your career.
Always love you, brother.
Take care. Brad Meltzer, everybody. Elisha Krauss going to come in here. We'll do some news right after this. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Pow! Yeah, O'Reilly, man. These guys are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offers friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. I've always used O'Reilly. I worked on my Toyota Supra with O'Reilly, my Isuzu Trooper, my many Datsun pickup trucks that I had to drive back in the day when I was swinging a hammer. Always O'Reilly with me. So whether you're a car aficionado or an auto novice, you'll find the employees at O'Reilly Auto Parts are knowledgeable, helpful, and best of all, friendly. So stop by the O'Reilly Auto Parts today, or you can visit us online at O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. Select quote. Well, there's so many things in life we just never get around to. Taking up that hobby, cleaning out the garage, the little things that can make a pretty big difference in our lives. Yet there is one thing that most of us probably have been neglecting, and it makes a huge impact for your family's future. It's life insurance. With SelectQuote, getting covered with the right policy for you is easier and more affordable than you may think. If you have high blood pressure, no problem. If you have diabetes, that's fine too. Even if you have heart disease, SelectQuote partners with carriers that can cover those conditions and others. So head over to selectquote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. It's SelectQuote, right, Dawson?
SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/Carolla. Go to selectquote.com/Carolla today to get started. That's selectquote.com/Carolla. It's time to check Adam's voicemail.
Calling from Albany. I just got passed by a guy on a recumbent e-bike. Pretty sure I've never seen one of those before. You and transmission.
You can leave us a message at 888-634-1744.
Elisha Krauss is in studio. I don't have her plug sheet, but you tell people where we can read your column and so forth.
Washington Examiner. Check out the Washington Examiner. You can follow me on X and Instagram. I spend more time on Instagram. I haven't convinced you to get on Instagram yet. One of these days. Yeah, recumbent e-bike is, you're going to get yourself killed because you cannot be seen. You're laying on a mechanic's creeper scooting through traffic and you're low. So I will go with the recumbent e-bike, which that is a way to scoot about town, but you're going to have a nice big flag on it, like a dune buggy. Like a big old orange flag?
Yeah, like dune buggies have flags. Recumbent bikes often have flags because you can't be seen. You're below the bumper line.
Oh, you're right. Mm-hmm. Those ones are pretty high. I had a moment.
Wait, which ones are pretty
high?
Like
the flags on those bikes tend to be 6 to 8 feet high. I feel like they're really high.
Well, yeah, that's the point of a flag. You don't want it low to the ground.
I have
drag it on the ground. Yeah, you got to have it up so people can see you coming.
I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. Actually, the whole crew.
Flag based?
Kind of, but road etiquette based.
Mm-hmm. All right, I will answer.
Happened to me on the way over here.
Yes.
GPS took me Forest Lawn Drive because there was a little traffic. Mm-hmm. And of course, you're right by Forest Lawn Cemetery in LA, for those who don't know. And a funeral procession starts to go by. Mm-hmm. So me being the good old girl from Oklahoma, I pull to the side and put on my hazard lights. Uh-huh. 2 cars pass me. It's no big deal. And keep driving by the procession, speeding, by the way. I mean, I speed, but not insanely. And I was just like, you assholes. Someone's family, the coffin goes by. Mm-hmm. All of the cars have their lights on. There are 2 police motorcycles escorting them. They all have badges that say funeral.
Yes.
And I didn't keep driving until the last funeral badge went by me.
Pass the procession.
And they were passing me and doing the thing.
Right, because they're all queued up in one lane, and these people went to the next lane and zipped past them.
Yes, and I'm over on the shoulder, with my hazards on, being respectful. Is that just an Oklahoma thing?
Yeah, life is for the living out here, sweetie. I respect that. I think it's a good impulse, what you did.
You don't do that?
Good. I'm trying to think of I've not really encountered a lot of funeral processions.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. I have people sitting in the right lane, not turning on a red light all the time. And that's something I can get into, but this doesn't happen frequently enough. I would say a couple things. Mm-hmm.
I'm a good person.
You shouldn't pass them. That's a good impulse. Look, anything's a good impulse. If your kid did it, you would go, oh, good.
Yes.
And so that means it's a good thing.
Yes.
And then if your kid's anything you're talking about, like you go, I like to smoke weed. Okay, would you be happy if your 14-year-old smoked weed? And if the answer is no, then maybe it's not good. If just all through the eyes of if your kid did this, would you be happy with that? Which is how...
Or even your significant other, right? Like you would judge your husband or your wife if they were like zipping around a funeral procession.
Yeah, that's why I always think about P. Diddy's mom going to the trial.
Oh my gosh, that is so messed up, isn't it? And his children are there too?
Can you imagine just sitting there? It's like, well, sometimes his shoulder would get so tired from beating on his woman that he would just take a break and pee on her for a while. Then he'd get back to beating on her.
Pay somebody else to pee on her.
And it's like, no, if I was the mom, I would not attend that. I would not attend to listen to that.
To me, it shows an element of like support. Well, everybody remembers the Scott Peterson trial, right?
Yes.
And remember how his parents, and I think his sister until almost the very end, thought that he was innocent, thought that he didn't murder Lacey and her unborn child, and like stood by him.
Yes.
I wonder how... I mean, obviously, everybody has an asshole sibling, like it happens, or cousin, or in-law, or something, right? And I don't 100% blame a parent of like a bad person. Like it's not 100% the parent's fault. But when you have somebody like a Scott Peterson or a Diddy, whose mama thinks that they can do no wrong and is willing to sit there and listen to the horrific victim testimonies. And act like it's okay and support their son in that way, maybe there's a correlation. Right?
Yeah. She may be the original enabler. Yeah. Not my mom. My mom, I had 2 shows on basic cable. My mom didn't even get basic cable. So she would not be she would not be sitting there in the courthouse supporting her son. All right. Funeral procession. I'm with you.
Okay.
I would like to think I would do the right thing and pull over. I agree. There's a couple.
If it was your funeral, would you be looking down from heaven pissed at the idiot in the Tesla that went by me?
No. I would expect nothing more from a Los Angelino behind the wheel of a Tesla. But I will say there's some mitigating circumstances. It depends.
There was no woman in labor.
Right. I'm saying
it was a bro who was vaping.
Yeah, I get it. I think
that was probably this close to being like, I bought this before Elon went crazy bumper sticker. Have you seen those?
I have. I would be with you, and I think you did the right thing.
I also laid into my horn when he passed me.
Oh, like, the guy passed you?
Asshole.
Really?
Yeah.
You were off to the shoulder?
I was like partially on the shoulder with my hazards on because that's the way my mama raised me.
I got to say, you're supposed to pull it on over when the emergency vehicle is hauling, the fire truck's hauling down the street. I look at it as more of a bump draft. Like, okay, we're going. Like, I'm not impeding this person. I'm staying behind them, and people are clearing out. I think
depending on the situation, for sure, that can work.
All right. So
I think, Elisha, the overall message is welcome to Los Angeles. Lower your
I've been here for 12 years, and I expect more of you guys.
I wanted to tell Brad Meltzer, because his whole thing was on his commencement speech, and I just got into so many discussions with Brad about so many things. I didn't have a chance to bring up the Scott Pelley and the Tim Walz commencement speech, but Brad's commencement speech was inspirational, and now they're becoming funeral dirges. Like, they're full bummers now. And I'm like, you're supposed to motivate these young people to come out into society, not make them want to eat a bullet before they get out to the parking lot. And I hate, you know what? I'll tell you why I don't like. I've seen it. Speaking of, I did go to a funeral once.
Just once?
Lucky
you'd only.
I went to a funeral once and again, but I'm saying one of the funerals I went to was a very young man who died, 26.
That's hard.
Young. And the woman, who was not his mom, but it was they employed him. A little bit nutty and a bit of a narcissist. And she got up at his funeral and said she made it about herself. she said, who's going to get me coffee in the morning? It was all about her.
Wow.
But anyone who knows a nutty chick who makes it all about themselves they also know they cannot stop themselves from making, it doesn't matter whether they're at the airport or a funeral home, it's whatever they can say. Like, you can say to them, I'm really bummed out because before I met you for brunch, I had to put my dog down, and then they'll immediately go into putting their dog down and how they felt. That was 4 years ago, but they feel it You're done. We're done with you. It's all right. She couldn't help herself. She made it about herself. But I feel when you're doing the commencement and you're making about politics and your own personal politics, you're making about yourself,
100%.
asswipe. First off, not everyone agrees with you. Not everyone agrees with you. There's a lot of people here who don't agree with you.
But I think that they're in their little bubble,
Yes.
and they think that, or they think even those that they know don't agree with them, they think that they should because they think that they know best.
Well,
and so
it's not. It's not that they know best. They're righteous, and you're not. They're a good person, and you're not.
It's a wrong-headed self-righteous's of like,
Yes.
I shouldn't even have to have a conversation with you, but I'm
Right.
going to preach at you now because I think I'm right and you're wrong.
All right. Well, let's see. We'll
Watch it.
We'll look at Scott's first. By the way, next time he's going to report some story on Trump on 60 Minutes. Shall we believe him? I don't. I want to say this. News people, don't get out and tell us who you are. Newspapers, don't endorse a candidate. LA Times endorses Joe Biden. Oh, and there's a bunch of good stories about Joe Biden and a bunch of crappy stories about Trump. As a baseball umpire, don't walk out wearing a Cleveland Indians jersey. Or Red Sox. I don't want to know don't tell me who you root for, because now I'm worried.
Yeah.
You see, I want you to call balls and strikes. I don't want to know who your favorite team is. All right. So, Scott, don't tell us this. This is why no one watches 60 Minutes anymore, because we don't believe you. All right, here it is. Sorry.
But in this moment, this morning,
this is gravitas.
our sacred rule of law is under attack. Journalism is under attack. Universities are under attack. Freedom of speech is under attack. And insidious fear is reaching through our schools, our businesses, our homes, and into our private thoughts.
I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking
fear
about.
to speak.
To speak. But yet you never stop, do you?
America.
Wait, pause it for a second. You know, it's funny. I was watching this with Drew, and Drew went, "Oh, he's not a reporter. He's an actor." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what he is. This is his greatest role
Aren't they all?
a bullshit
Honestly,
news guy."
Like, if that hadn't been about, Trump allegedly attacking media companies and Harvard and all this stuff, like, give the guy a Bible and he sounds like a tentpole evangelist.
Yeah.
Going into our thoughts. It's like that fear-mongering kind of like, right?
No, it's kind of funny that nobody hates the tentpole evangelist more than this guy or their side, but that's who they are.
Exactly.
They just do it with the environment.
Exactly.
Your children are not going to have air to breathe or clean water to drink.
Yeah.
Fire and brimstone.
You're not going to have NPR to listen to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, who's going to lie to us if not we get rid of NPR? I think there's a little more. Sorry, it's kind of funny.
Rewrite history with grotesque, false narratives. They can make criminals heroes and heroes criminals.
He's auditioning for Macbeth.
That's right. He's holding a skull. Yes.
Of the words we use to describe
go back
reality.
20 seconds. Let's just see him again.
Criminals. Power can change the definition of the words we use to describe reality. Diversity is now described as illegal.
What?
Equity is to be shunned. Inclusion is a dirty word.
He made that word
This is an
3
old-
syllables.
Word. By the way, it's so funny that he talks about reality, the definition of reality changing when he's the person that will advocate for like men and women's sports.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is also another prime example of accuse the other side of doing what you are doing.
Yes.
100%.
First off, who the hell signs up for this crap? Get this blowhard out of here. Like somebody throw a folding chair at him.
Oh, he's at Woke Forest, so
I get
he's
it.
welcome
I
there.
actually think I've spoken there before. It might have been pre-COVID, but I feel like I've spoken there for the YAF chapter, and they tried to do all of this stuff to like shut me and other conservative speakers down. Surprise,
People
surprise.
may not know what the YAF chapter is.
Young America's Foundation. Those evil, horrible conservatives that are against
the
DEI.
Southern Poverty Law Group qualifies you as a hate group. Right?
YAF?
Yes.
Really? I know they did that with PragerU.
It's so funny. These guys are such, first off, they make this bullshit organization called the Southern Poverty Law Center. So they basically, it's like you going, I'm going to take duct tape and I'm going to write on this duct tape, Grand Wizard of the Universe who knows all, and I'll just put on the door of my dorm room. And then at some point when you're arguing with someone, you go, I talked to the Grand Wizard who knows all, and he told me you were wrong, bro. And then that'll be it. I'll just be ripping bong loads in my bathrobe. Southern Poverty Law Centers has got bullshit organization that just magically calls every group they disagree with and every conservative group a hate organization, and then dumb politicians trot it out and they go, this is labeled a hate organization by the Southern so PragerU's a hate organization, so says you. And by the way, everyone's on the right, and it's only people who disagree with them who magically get the designation of hate.
It's typically Christians, like the Family Research Council, which remember, well, you probably remember, but I'm old enough to remember when the Family Research Council actually had like a shooting because they were viewed as one of the quote unquote targeted organizations by the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yeah.
But no, can't talk about that.
I don't
at all.
I think whether it's Southern Poverty Law Center or 60 Minutes or PBS or Rachel Maddow or something, or Jake Tapper, people eventually just go, then we're not listening to these people anymore. Like, we're kind of at that point where, listen.
Just don't listen to anybody.
Listen to me. Listen to me. People were scared to death of Scientology and what they would do to you.
Yeah.
You're talking to a guy who spoke out against Scientology in 1997 and was threatened and told that my life was going to be destroyed by Scientology and they would make me miserable and maybe hurt me and whatever it was. And I spoke out. Now, sorry, Leah Remini. Everyone thinks you're a hero for speaking out in 2014. This dude was doing it in the 90s and threatened and told what was going to happen. And I did it anyway. And it turned out nobody cared about Scientology. And now Scientology can't threaten people anymore because people go, oh, who cares?
Well,
They
the
don't
other
care
thing about
anymore.
Scientology is one of their things is they threaten people who care about you, and we've found out that no one cared about you.
That's right.
They also, I think, care more about like what's within the church. Like they don't want somebody like Aaliyah
What I'm
going
saying
out.
is
You know
there
what I
was
mean?
a fear that if you said anything about Black Lives Matters
Sure.
or
Yeah.
anything about COVID or anything about the 2020 election or anything about something, they had all the power, and if you said anything, you were going to be canceled and destroyed, so people were scared.
Yep.
People don't give a shit about Southern Poverty Law Center anymore. It's just a fakakta group that no one listens to.
Southern Poverty should be the band at a dive bar playing Molly Hatchet.
That's
covers.
right. A Molly Hatchet cover band.
By the way, do they only think that poverty exists in the South?
I don't. They just throw it around. And no one cares about your labels anymore. And you can label PragerU whatever you want. No one cares. Nobody cares. No one's listening. No one cares. Now, the thing that's weird is Scott Pelley doesn't know nobody cares. anymore. He doesn't know he's viewed as a retarded old blowhard, an old sock that just needs to be put out to the hamper of life.
Here's my biggest question, though. Does he believe what he's saying? Because if he does, there is a mental health crisis.
Yes, he does.
In this country.
I've talked to these people.
He believes what he's saying, and he believes that what he has to say is very important.
But he also but with these people, the thing I never can wrap my mind around is nothing ever happens and they don't ever consider that. Every single person that was on the news telling us we're going to die of COVID didn't die. They're all alive. And then every single one of them then went from COVID to talk about Hitlerian oppression and being run out in unmarked vans and blah, blah, blah. And nothing ever happens.
Handmaid's Tale.
Nothing ever happens to them. So eventually something's got to happen.
I mean,
or
but
you
when
need to shut up.
When things happen, though, it tends to be their side doing the atrocious thing.
On the other side, it did happen. I remember very clearly there was one political party who pushed you to get an experimental vaccine, who censored what you said on social media, and who a large part of their party supports the destruction of Israel and the Jewish nation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, no, they do it.
But they're
Trump's
not anti-Jewish. They're just anti-Zionist. That's what they're saying now about this DC murderer.
All right. We got one more because we got Tim Walz.
Oh, God. You're going to make me watch this?
I like it. I because in my world, I didn't graduate college.
Me
but
either.
I thought you had to play that Carpenter song. We've only just begun to live. White lace and prom. I thought you played We Only Just Begun. And then somebody like a Richard Simmons type would come out and try to really get the crowd excited about the future. I didn't know it was going to be old men blowhards just fucking harshing our Mel. All right, let's just play Tim Walz because it's fun.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the street.
Modern day cold soup.
He couldn't even say the word.
You like a vegetarian cold soup who rounds up Jews?
Yep.
They're modern day Gaspacho people. Now, there's a tomato-based who will round up Hasidic Jews. And then we have a cucumber-based Gaspacho who will round up some of the Ashkenazi Jews. They don't work on the same Jews. The tomato-based gazpacho does not work on the same thing as a cucumber-based gazpacho. But if you like a summer soup, you like a soup during the summer and chowder's a little too rich for your blood and you need a Jew rounded up, you go with the gazpacho. Okay? Okay.
He can't even say it right.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense. Not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye. Just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared. To be clear, there's no way for us to know whether they were actually criminals or not, because they refused to give them a trial.
A kiss for luck and we're on our way. Yeah, this modern-day gazpacho shows up in an unmarked bowl. And with ladles out to justice with a side of soda crackers.
So as a mom of 4, I'm in Maycember right now, and our kids' school does oratorical fairs, and I have sat through a kindergarten.
Maycember.
It's like May and December because it's all of the events that happen at the end of the school year.
Oh, you speak in a code that needs to be deciphered on occasion.
Sorry. And
Maycember was in the gazpacho.
And so
that's Play May of the Year in 1983, bro.
Literally,
Maycember.
There's kindergartners, so I've been going to these oratorical fairs for my 5th grader, 1st grader, and kindergartner. Mm-hmm. And they could say that word better. Like,
Gaspacho.
the little kids get up on the stage and they have these hard words to say, like inauguration, everybody screws up.
Inauguration.
Gestapo.
Yeah.
Gestapo.
But they could say that better. And this guy was a candidate for vice president of the United States and is a governor of like a major Midwestern state. And he cannot say... It makes it comical. Like it makes the rest of what he's saying. You're right. You tune it out.
But you should see him run a pick 6 under the hood of his international scout.
Yeah, he's running a pick 6. I had a long talk with my girlfriend about gazpacho, and she was like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, you can do it. You can do it right. My grandfather used to make it.
Really?
It was good. There's such a thing. Look, you're talking to a guy who likes lots of beef and barley and junk. You know, I like a stew.
Mm-hmm.
There is a cold vegetarian soup that is damn good.
I don't think I've ever had one that was good.
It flies in the face of soup because soup is like for a cold day or it's raining outside or whatever. But I am telling you, Laszlo Gorog made Gaspacho, and he was a Jew who fled Hungary, but it was good.
It was good?
Yeah, and it was green. It wasn't people.
I've had like a watermelon feta mint one before, but it was like in a little shot glass, and it was more like a
that's an LA
appetizer shot thingy. It wasn't Hungarian.
Look up a traditional gazpacho recipe.
Are they going to come get me in a van with their masks on?
Unmarked van. Yeah, you have to. It's unmarked because if it says ice and rainbow tape on it, when you come pulling into the neighborhood, everyone scatters.
Yeah.
I like the unmarked van.
Yeah.
Wearing masks. I thought you liked masks, puss. Didn't you like masks?
Are we looking up a recipe?
I've been thinking about it a lot lately.
You should try to make it. Any idea if the recipe? Because that's a red. You're saying that his was green though. That's red.
I am telling you what we did. We did the same thing with him. He used to do chicken paprikash, and there's an American version where you just add tomato to everything, and you turn everything into a sloppy Joe. It's bullshit. Chicken paprikash, the sauce is sort of brown gold color. It's not red. It's not tomato based. But every recipe you look up, they try to get you to do the tomato part. He didn't do it that way. 2 pounds of ripe Roma tomatoes. Yeah, this is tomato soup we're talking about here. It starts off with 2 pounds of Roma tomatoes.
That's a lot.
And then 1 small cucumber. This is going to be tomato soup.
It looks like a sauce.
I made chicken tortilla soup last week. Ooh. And if I had taken it out of the fridge the next day and put it in a bowl, I could have convinced anyone that it was Gestapo.
Gestapo.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I want green. I don't want the tomato. That's why I yelled no tomato at the beginning of the thing. You find me recipes that's 2 pounds of tomato. You're ruining Laszlo Gorog's legacy.
Sorry, let's get to the Laszlo section of the internet.
Get to the Laszlo section of the internet. All right, go ahead. News. What do you got?
Well, there was a girl fight outside of Barack Obama's home.
Yeah, I heard about that.
But it wasn't over Barack or Michelle. It was 2 Secret Service officers who have now been suspended. Oh, we have the video?
Yeah.
Oh, fun. I just heard the audio. We got some video for this.
Yeah, I heard one showed up late.
And apparently she repeatedly showed up late.
And the other had enough. I have a theory, which is women are fighting now. It's on, and women. Okay, people don't understand that I know everything. Women do not have the ability to regulate like men have the ability to regulate because we grow up doing rough play. And when you're a
having
kid,
to constantly regulate, you mean?
Constantly regulate. And anyone who's been around a woman, anyone who knows, I will tell you this. It's a simple experiment.
Uh-huh.
Any woman I've ever known, if you're in the kitchen together, let's say I'm making Gestapo with my lovely lady friend.
Uh-huh.
But any guy will tell you this.
Yeah.
And you are, working at the stove or something, you back up and she's not, and you step on her foot, her arm comes flying out. You step on her foot, her arm goes sailing out and whacks you.
Yep.
It's almost like a mechanical toy where you like push on the foot and the arm goes sailing out. You step on the guy's foot, the guy goes, hey, oh, or whatever, but his arm doesn't sail out.
There's no instant reaction.
Right, because we regulate. We can regulate. If you're late, you're late, but we don't start pushing you or what have you. Women don't grow up in the regulation mode, and then all of a sudden we put them in these weird positions like security guards and stuff, and now it's on.
So apparently one of the ladies radioed, I need a supervisor out here immediately before I whoop this girl's ass. But the Secret Service...
There's a little DEI in here, I'm sure.
The Secret Service... So that's been speculation on X, right? And the Secret Service told Fox News Digital that the individuals involved were suspended from duty, and this matter is the subject of an internal investigation. The Secret Service has a very strict code of conduct, yada, yada. But this is interesting. The spokesperson added this, so I think that there's more to than the she was just late thing, right? Mm-hmm. Secret Service continued, quote, given this is a personal matter, we are not in a position to comment further. Personal matter.
Well, we got rid of the Secret Service chick who was like, listen, everybody... If you have a job that's not an important job, and many people have unimportant jobs, just nothing. If you're a dog walker, I don't give a shit. If you give out scoops of ice cream or free samples at the Costco, I don't care. You do whatever you want. But if you have an important job, like airplane pilot,
protecting a former president of the United States,
surgeon, something like of that nature, Secret Service. And your supervisor gets up there and makes speeches about trying to attract as many women as we can and get as many women pushed up to the front of the line and advance as many women. That bitch needs to shut up. This is an important job. We need the best, which can be a woman. Probably not. But it can be a woman. Now. And then you can be the best woman, whatever. But we are not going to shove you up to the front of the line because... people could get hurt.
I gotta say, I have been told because in my life,
by the way, or black or Hispanic or anything.
Yeah, I've actually been told by people in classified jobs that women do a lot of security roles well because of our ability to be very attentive and have attention to detail and self-awareness and like a motive and maybe even some manipulative factors that we can play.
Hold on. You bust all the serial killers because you're into it.
Yeah.
I get that part.
On the podcast and on YouTube.
You're on the computer all day running down serious.
But I'm just saying, no, like professionally at the international like spycraft, warcraft level, women can be very good at those roles.
I agree.
But also, I don't know, this was a girl fight about something. I got to say to these ladies.
Wait, what was your point?
You got to, I think that you can't assume that this was a DEI thing. Maybe it was.
Well, I can because... here's why I'm going to assume it's a DEI thing.
Okay.
30 years ago, there were 0% women in these roles.
Yeah.
Then you elected people who made proclamations, I want women in these roles, and I'm going to get as many in here as fast as I can. And then when the women act unprofessional or not up to the standards of whatever it is, then we normally will go there because we'll go, well, they got shoved up into a position maybe they shouldn't have been in. We did forget about the Trump ladies.
Oh, I didn't forget about them. I also didn't forget about all the male Secret Service agents that got in trouble for like hiring hookers and doing blow and stuff when they were in Central America.
That's what you want them doing, though.
No,
that's their job. That's what you want.
That's the secret.
That's why they're better protecting.
They should be let go for letting loose the secret of the Secret Service.
Yes.
And I got to say to these ladies, I want the ladies, like as a woman who believes in equality, I want the best, most capable, badass women in that role.
But here's another issue. Trump is 6'3", 250 pounds.
Yeah, so is every Secret Service agent supposed to be 6'5" plus?
Are men bigger than women?
Obviously.
All right.
Women are not small dudes.
Use your brain.
But I'm just saying, so then in order to protect a president, are you supposed to be physically larger than that guy? I mean, Barack Obama's tall too, isn't he?
It would be helpful if you're laying on him, trying to physically protect him, the more percentage of his surface you could take up, the safer he would be. Don't you think?
100%.
All right. Well, thank you.
But I think there's other jobs out there that women could do. And when women like this get into cat fights, it makes other women look bad.
Yeah.
That's what I'm more perturbed about.
Well, but why would you say there are other jobs out there women could do?
Like within the Secret Service, I think that there are jobs. Maybe you're not on POTUS's special team.
I think there's tons of jobs for everybody, including
ice cream scoopers.
No, including uniformed, on the ground. But there's things. I do not want you shoved up to the front of that line because you have a supervisor who's announcing this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't want Black Secret Service shoved up to the front of the line either. I just want everybody going through the same whatever. There's, a physical conditioning part of it.
100%.
You need to pass it. If you cannot pass it, then you cannot be, regardless of what you are.
There's a mental issue, conditioning part of it as well, where I'm sure that all these Secret Service agents at the top of their game know how to leave their personal shit at home, know how not to lose their shit if their relief is a half an hour late, and know how to show up at work on time.
Yeah,
so
and
I'd say they're both unqualified.
I think that there's kind of a bro code when you talk about men like self-regulating. Like you might be annoyed at your coworker if he showed up a half hour late for the shift, but you'd be like, dude, what the hell? And he doesn't take offense to it. Where like using the kitchen analogy, if a girl says that to a girl, then it's like, how dare you? We just like automatically feel attacked and then shit hits the fan.
Yeah. All right. One more.
One more? Well, do we want to shit on Los Angeles or do we want to talk about how the end of the world is nigh because the CDC has now stopped recommending a COVID vaccine for most children and pregnant women?
Oh, yeah. Well, pregnant women and kids should have never gotten vaccinated. I don't know. This became very controversial. I included.
It still is, by the way. Vanity Fair is saying that like RFK wants us all to die.
I told, they got that information from the Southern Poverty Law Center. At the time COVID came around and there was all kinds of speculation about the vaccine, I had very elderly parents, and I said my parents should get vaccinated if they'd like because they're elderly. I also have young twins, 14-year-olds probably at the time, who are not going to school because they closed their school. I don't want them being vaccinated because it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
I don't think it's dangerous per se, but maybe it is. But either way, they're healthy, they're thin, and they're young, and they have no pre-existing conditions.
Yep.
So they do not need to be vaccinated. And then Chris and Jim Carolla could get vaccinated. And then as far as myself goes, I'm not old, I'm not young, I'm in decent shape. I don't have pre-existing conditions. I'll figure it out for myself.
Yeah.
There's my controversial stance on vaccinations. And then everyone's like, well, he's an anti-vaxxer. No. But I don't need my kids vaccinated for malaria because they're not going to Africa.
Uh-huh.
They're fine.
Yeah, they're going to be okay.
Right.
Turns out kids were like always going to be okay.
Always. But old people, go ahead and get it.
So then media narrative now is that, well, will you even be able to get a COVID vaccine? Like is RFK Jr. going to ban them all?
It's always doom and gloom. Nothing ever comes down the pike. And by the way, to all who are Vanity Fair readers, if you guys didn't,
all two of you.
If you didn't lie so much about the vaccine, people would not be so hesitant to take it. You lied so much for so long at such a high level.
Yeah.
And I'll just be charitable. Okay, you didn't lie. You were just wrong about every fucking thing that had to do with the vaccine. Okay? Well, people would be much more likely to listen if you didn't have a track record of being incorrect.
Or also if you had the cognitive ability to admit when you were wrong.
That would help. All right. Actor Paul Guilfoyle is waiting in the wings. He's got a book out, I should say a movie out. I don't have your info, so you give yourself one quick plug, would you, my dear?
Well, just check out my op-eds over at Washington Examiner and follow me on social.
Elisha Krauss. Thank you very much, my dear.
Thank you.
Simply Safe. Wow. You want a safe feeling when you're at home. And I think that's why you have a home, traditionally, to feel safe in it. And that's where Simply Safe comes in. Traditional home security systems only take action after someone has already broken in. That's too late. Simply Safe is setting the new standard in home security. Simply Safe's Active Guard outdoor protection can help prevent break-ins before they happen with AI-powered cameras backed by live professional monitoring agents who monitor your property to detect suspicious activity, and they do it in real time. so you can avoid this before it happens. Monitoring plans start affordably at around $1 a day. We've always used Simply Safe. When you move, you pack up your system and take it with you. So it's not all hardwired, not a bunch of holes drilled everywhere. It's not a mess. It's very modular, very sleek, and very nice looking. It is Simply Safe, right, Dawson?
You can get 50% off your new Simply Safe system with professional monitoring and your first month free at simplysafe.com/Adam. Just head to simplysafe.com/Adam to claim your discount and make sure your home is safe this year. Keep your home, your family, and your peace of mind protected with Simply Safe. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
See what's screaming free all month long during Pluto TV's April Ghouls. Get your heart pounding with nightmare-fueling classics like Insidious and Bram Stoker's Dracula. Or test your nerves with haunting hits like Urban Legend and Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Pluto TV has hundreds of channels and thousands of terrifying movies, live and on demand. Download Pluto TV on all your favorite devices and start streaming now.
The Ace Man's still on the road, coming up this weekend in Tacoma, Washington. 2 shows Friday night, 2 shows Saturday night at the Tacoma Comedy Club, and then Sunday night, 2 shows at the Spokane Comedy Club. Then in Palm Springs, California for Freedom Fest on June 11th, and a full weekend of shows in Salt Lake City, June 13th and 14th at Wise Guys. Get your tickets now at adamcarolla.com.
Actor Paul Guilfoyle has joined us. His new movie, Any Day Now, which I watched the trailer for. Very interesting caper movie. You can watch it on Amazon Prime. Paul's done tons of work as I look at your bio, Paul. Wall Street, Mrs. Doubtfire, Air Force One, one of the greatest films of all time, 3 Men and a Baby, L.A. Confidential, Wall Street. I mean, just Howard the Duck, Beverly Hills Cop, 2. Just keeps going. Good to see you, Paul.
Nice to see you, Adam. Good to see you.
The movie is like a kind of older school, heisty, capery kind of movie, which I grew up on and love, and I don't feel like there's enough of those being made these days.
Yeah, I think it's all everything you mentioned. It has, it takes place in 1990. So in a way, we're kind of true to the time of 1990, but it also has the feel of movies of that time, 1990, even going so far back as Mean Streets. It shows really the neighborhood of Boston and the kind of a funky bunch of the crew, the wacky crew that pulled off this heist. And it's kind of a bunch of local thieves, really, the local group.
Yeah, The Town comes to mind as a good
that's
movie
too.
from that era. And That Town. Bostonian people, I know a few, are very interesting to me because they're blue collar as anywhere else, but with a thesaurus. Like right. and it's weird. They have a kind of smart, but they use it for evil. And it's weird because I tell people I grew up with blue collar lunkheads in the San Fernando Valley.
Sure.
And they, let their fists do their talking and like to drink and smoke and drive fast and got into trouble. But they couldn't articulate it like the Boston people can, who are really bright, but also that, which is weird, right?
Well, no, you kind of nailed it. That's true. I grew up in Boston. And, everybody seems to be that same kind of, their background was always tough and Teamsters and like in my family and people who worked with their hands and they lived in kind of these little collectives really in neighborhoods. So they had a really loyalty to the neighborhood, which was very ethnically based, of course, kind of mendacious and had all the problems of a small neighborhood. But it's true that because of the class distinction in Boston, I think, and this is what the movie deals with, there was a kind of a Yankee upper class of sophisticated people who were highly educated and well-traveled and continental and even philanthropic and good for the city and really were the sort of ancient and honorable of the city. That always filtered down into the kind of, fisticuffs of the working class, so that frankly education, you had to have education in your pocket as well as some brass knuckles.
Yeah, and there seemed to be a kind of a built-in humor, even if it was kind of a wise ass humor, but but a humor, a blue collar humor, but a humor that, like I said, out here, the blue collar guys on the construction sites, there's not a lot of humor with them.
Yeah. Well, I think it is the pushback, like I said, from the class system, where people really were trying to. There's tons of plays. I was in one with George Bernard Shaw with the late great Richard Jordan as an actor, and he played the rich guy, and I was his chauffeur. And it's also in Bertolt Brecht. There's like a Puntilla and Maddie. There's always in Miles Gloriosus from Plautus. Here I am sounding like a guy with a thesaurus, but it's like. There's always the lower class guy knew more than the upper class guy, was more savvy about the street smarts, about how to get things done, and was kind of brighter with everyday ideas. So that's kind of why they were always kind of has that sardonic twist. But you have that generally going on anyway, that kind of sarcasm and wit.
Yeah, people assume I'm from the East Coast because I was always wired, quick with a comeback or something, but blue collar. And no, I grew up out here with some sort of East Coast vibe or appeal or something. And also, the Valley, I mean, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. It's just a lot of sort of dudes who they want to get a new pipe for their jet ski and go to the lake. That's basically what they want to do. That's the life's ambition. Sure. And I don't know how it breaks down regionally. It's just that the San Fernando Valley doesn't have culture. There's no age to it. There's no old buildings or churches. Everything is a strip mall. Everything's an aluminum window and a flat roof and bad stucco job. Yeah. Everything was built in '63. There's nothing there. There's no sense of a culture.
So
or
in
vibe.
a sense, the difference between me, you had no resistance to your rebellion, whereas in Boston, the resistance was the upper class. There was a class that controlled things. So you kind of either wanted to rip them off. In this case, which is what the movie's about, you want to take stuff from them that you knew more about. You felt like the art thief that I played. He thinks of himself as knows more about art than anybody else. And so he's going to take the stuff that he knows is valuable. And he's going to take it from the so-called man, where there's resistance in his whole life, in and out of jail all the time, and take stuff that he believes he deserves. It's the resistance was there. Whereas in San Fernando Valley, you had good orange juice, that's for sure. But you didn't have any resistance from another class.
No, we didn't know. I didn't know where the rich people were. Really?
Yeah, well, that's that great line in Tender Bar. The real people, you never see them, people who are really rich, you never even hear about them, especially in L.A. I mean, they're in modernist houses on the top of Mulholland,
Yes. No, I was about to say they lived up in the hills, essentially. Yeah, right. And by the way, they weren't rich. They were just kind of rich to us. They were living... Yeah. At the time in Studio City in the hills off of Laurel Canyon, and their house was $87,000.
They probably got rich because they worked hard at something that was paying well. That's all. But they weren't rich from generationally like it was in Boston.
Yeah. No, there were no Rothschilds here.
Yeah, there was nobody came on the Mayflower and went to the San Fernando Valley.
No, that's for sure. They would have been wildly disappointed if they got off the Mayflower and ended up in Reseda.
And really a difficult journey from Plymouth, Massachusetts, with the Mayflower all the way to the San Fernando Valley in 1620. That would have been hard.
But strangely, my grandmother was like a fourth generation Los Angelino, and grew up in Beverly Hills for a while, even though her dad was a big cement contractor. So he was this blue collar dude, but he had a good business going, and they lived here generationally for years and years and years. No one else grew up out here that I've ever met. But then he went bankrupt and it all fell apart. But I did come from some like old white people who are, putting the flag down early in Los Angeles.
Yeah. That was great about the movie, even though we're not talking about, but Let There Be Blood. That's a beautiful movie about, how hardworking people unscrupulously, grabbed a lot of LA and made it happen.
Yeah, I wish some of the Carollas grabbed some of LA at some point. Because I would hear stories from my grandmother. My grandmother would go, you'd get on Wilshire Boulevard and all the way down to the ocean, it was nothing but bean fields. And I'd go, why didn't you buy one piece of one of those bean fields, you old bitch? By the way,
preferably the one right on the ocean.
Yes, the movie Any Day Now is 96% with the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is unbelievably high. Yeah,
it must be people from my family, my extended Irish family, that are watching it.
No, because they need like at least 50 votes, I think, to chime in before they'll put the percentage up there.
Oh, okay.
And you can see it. I mean, there's probably hundreds, but the people will let you know about the quality of a project. And if you get into the 90s, that's rarefied air on Rotten Tomatoes.
Good to know. And that's great. That's great because, we can talk about this like a little bit. The stuff that we do is either like seems to be the branding, selling, promoting, or it's just simply like ritual. Like we'll have a story to tell, and like in the theater where I come from, work, it's more ritualistic where people come and receive a story, and we do it without a lot of without a lot of commerce. I mean, and that's what independent cinema seems to deliver. It tends to lie in the area that's more kind of ritualistic. I won't use the word artistic. It just has this, because it doesn't have enough time and money to get really creatively artistic in cinema and beauty and all that. But it does have a sense of ritual that is kind of honest. And this is an honest kind of movie story by a couple of people who were really just set out to make a really good movie without any extra, notion of careerism or branding or salesmanship or even, bank loans have to be paid off. It was done very economically, and hopefully people will respond to it because we tried to do it, frankly, as good as we could, and we had no expectations about it.
How did you get involved?
Well, I'm an old friend. Everybody's an old friend of mine because that's what happens. You get old, and if you hang on to a couple of people over your lifetime who you've always knew, there's a guy named Jan Eagleson who's a real artist, and he teaches at Boston University. But he was did some Hollywood work, but he was really involved in the beginning of independent cinema, and I knew him when he was an actor, and we were in the same theater company, and we've always been friends. We fall into place, I would say, like two old pirates talking about distant harbors. You know what I mean? We really knew the way around, and so we're roughly the same age. So it was, he suggested when he was working with the writer who wanted to be a director, Eric Aronson, this is his first directorial thing, he said, here's the guy you should get. And of course, in movies, you start off with, well, in my day, it used to be, let's get Jack Nicholson, let's get Brad Pitt. Everybody wants to get somebody that they can get sell tickets. But Jan helped me and helped Eric and got us all kind of on the same page. And he really did the work to get me there. I was excited to play the part because I knew a little bit briefly who the guy was, who the character was based on.
Well, tell us about the story. I mean, what was the true story?
Well, the true story is that in 1990, a group of probably local thieves who were really, they were aware and headed by this pretty good art thief, decided to steal some museum pieces from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, which was a monument given to the city by Isabella Stewart Gardner, who was kind of she was a fantastic woman who was not only philanthropic, but kind of a fun lover. around 1908 and had a lot of great parties and brought all her continental art and put an Italian villa on the Fenway in Boston and let it be free to the public. You could come in and enjoy the art that she collected. And I used to go there even as a student when I'd play hockey across the park at the Boston Arena, and I'd come over and do my homework a little bit in there because it was so relaxed and way more relaxed than my home life. So I could be in this beautiful place. I remember the museum a lot. So the movie deals with the heist, but mostly about the relationship that gets developed between the art thief and the young guy. Who is he manipulated, or is he helped out by his relationship with this older guy who's trying to teach him how to be actualized, be real? And he, of course, they need him to, leave the door open.
Do you reckon, I mean, there's lots of old crazy stories like James Dean's wrecked Porsche. They don't know where it is. Yeah. It got stolen. It was out there.
Porsche Spider.
Yeah, Barris is 550. Barris was a car customizer. The guy built the Batmobile and the Monkeys Mobile and that stuff. He had the car. He was touring it around somewhere around Florida. It's gone, and nobody knows where it is. And I don't know, it's worth millions of dollars, but no one knows where it is. And you could get away with that kind of stuff back then because everyone didn't have a Ring doorbell and a camera everywhere and a GPS tracking and blah, blah, blah. So it struck me that there was a lot more of that kind of stuff back then. Now there's probably stuff involving Bitcoin or something, but are people, we're not really heisting stuff anymore, are we?
You're kind of right. You're very astute about that. Yeah, I think it does have to do with that. And it's like, I mean, and also I think I don't know, maybe there was even a deeper, darker morality going on then too. Nobody thought of like, why do I want to steal? Like I said, these paintings are really a gift to the city. You could walk in and look at it, and there was a sense of honor. You're not going to steal them. I mean, who would come up with that idea? It was like a gift. So, and I think there were the ways to get in, and look at the Brinks robbery. I mean, you just get someone on the inside and go in at night and put the stuff in a big duffel bag and run.
Yeah, and also you probably could fence things back then much easier than you can now as well.
Exactly, because there's no two-step verification going on,
Right.
I mean, we don't have to, we're really so, I don't know if we live in a safer world, is it, and maybe less dangerous to some degree to some people, but it certainly takes out a kind of je ne sais quoi, kind of a vibe that I remember, being kind of real. I mean, we live under this guise that everything's safe, but really, frankly, it probably isn't at all,
No, I mean, it's all kind of airport security. You take your belt off and, you think you're doing something. But there's a guy in an apartment building with a Stinger missile he got from the Soviet Union, and he's going to blast the belly of your 737, and that's how you're going. But at least you took your belt off.
Right. And while they're checking your belt, some other dude is driving away with James Dean's Porsche.
That's right. Although they had to drag it away because it was still crunched up. All I think of when I think of that is it's in some OPEC nation in some underground bunker somewhere. It's not here. That's all I can think of.
Well, it's amazing, James Dean, because I'm a member of the Actors Studio. James Dean, his work was so raw and real, and he lived a life that had this sort of artistic vibe, which you can't do that really much anymore. People just think you're crazy. He'd play some bongos, and he would come out. I know people who knew him, and he would eat chocolate cake out of the middle by starting in the middle. I mean, he was really he was always trying to push the envelope. He was almost like a jazz musician in a way. But it's become where the stuff he owned has become the cultural memory of him, not his work in a way. You know what I mean?
Well, I think whenever you're exceptionally handsome or attractive, when there's a physicality to you that's universally appealing, then whatever your work is, it gets a little lost in that. Because,
well, I don't know. I don't want to disagree with you. It's your show, but I think just the opposite happens. I think that when the work gets really good and authentic, and you're really able to relate, and take chances and show and be vulnerable and see openness and curiosity. Montgomery Clift, Marlon, James Dean, these guys, even Al Pacino was my friend. I mean, you really start to forget what they look like. I mean, I guarantee you it's nice to look at something, but you're brought in basically on the universal truth that they're able to express.
Well, listen, I'm not going to argue with you. What I'm saying is, if Brad Pitt died 20 years ago, he would, in the minds of many Americans, would be this good-looking guy who died, Not everyone understands the craft to the level that you do. They're aesthetically oriented. They don't really understand it enough to really appreciate the nuance of it.
I think we're having a conversation. It's interesting, but I think they do understand it at a deep level when they see him. Brad Pitt is a good example because he started as a good actor. You understand what he's going through, even in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You see him like he's able to transmit himself. We relate to him. He's relatable, even though he's good looking, but he gets into situations where maybe not all of us get into, where some beautiful girl jumps in the car. I'm thinking of Margaret Qualley.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I love that movie, and I love him in it, and I love that movie. But he's in his 50s, and so was I when I saw it, and I could appreciate it and him. I'm just saying, if he went at 23, I don't know that I would have understood that in him.
I get you.
And
it'll be iconic.
James Dean became like a poster, but
right.
I don't think people understood how gifted he was and talented he was. It was like, oh, so good looking, gone so early, But he's an interesting guy. And there's a clip I can tell Dawson to look for. We've played it before. It's kind of crazy. Shortly before he died in this car crash, which was somebody didn't see him and hit him in this big Oldsmobile, big land yacht, from the 50s, 60s. He was doing a public service announcement about safety on the highway. They would get celebrities to do, say this thing. And the tagline was, "The life you save could be your own." And it was like just say no, or this is your brain on drugs. It was one of those PSA things. But he changed it. He said, "The life you save could be mine," which is changing. Could be your own to could be me, and then a very short period of time later was killed by somebody who didn't see him on the road. Isn't that crazy?
That's super ironic. I mean, that's the irony of that is I never heard that story. That's unbelievably.
We can find it. We have audio. It's on the internet. I'll play it for you.
But that term, live fast, die young, and leave a beautiful corpse. I think that's what you're saying too about the James Dean. He sort of lives on in that sort of iconic way.
I agree. And you and I we passed the Mason-Dixon line.
I'm going on like the old Oldsmobile.
All right, we'll show you a tape of it. Do we have a clip of it? There's a video of it.
There is a video, but we can't do audio during the Zoom right now.
Oh, I see. All right, we'll play the audio so you can hear.
Take it easy driving. The life you might save might be mine.
Yeah, you're supposed to say your own. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's super cool.
Yeah, I know. And he drove his 550 Porsche to the track because back then you needed to break in a car before you raced it. And the car was brand new, and he wanted to race it at Buttonwillow out here. So he said, well, I'll break it in by driving it to the track. And that's what he was in the midst of, of doing.
My wife's a modern dance fancy company and was working in Stuttgart for a month and a half. And I was visiting her, and I got introduced to the mechanic, who was James Dean's mechanic, and he walks around in Stuttgart like he's a celebrity. He's a handsome dude, but he was James Dean's mechanic from Porsche, and I was introduced him by the Porsche guys. I drive one of those myself, and so he's lived a whole life based upon being James Dean's mechanic.
You got a Porsche?
Yeah.
Which one?
Well, the one I've had a couple, but the one that I like the best is the RS America. It has a Ren Sport feeling. It's pretty quick. Ooh. I won't tell you where it's garaged. It's not garaged anywhere near I live. So
I don't want to be a one-upper, but about 20 feet away from me is the Ren Sport Weissach Trophy I won about 7 years ago in a 935 Porsche, as long as we're talking Porsches. Yeah, somebody go get it. It's right. It's sitting on the metal table right over there. Yeah.
Well, you should do the James Dean ad now for it.
I don't want to jinx myself, but yeah, I was in. I took Paul Newman's Le Mans 935 Porsche over to Laguna Seca and did Ren Sport in 2018, and won the. I think it's called the Weissach Trophy. I got to read it, but I won it in that car. It wasn't because I won the race.
That you are from the San Fernando Valley, by the way. You are from Valley, so that's that you wanted. That's a big deal.
I'll put it there. There it is.
Well, congratulations. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I don't. Well, maybe I brag, but as long as you're gonna bring a Porsche and the Weissach, the Ren Sport edition, I'll show you the Ren Sport. Ren
Sport RS.
Yeah, that's a killer car. You have any older? Did you have any older ones before that?
Well, I just had an SC that I could, beat up a little bit, and I just would really drive it pretty hard, and that's all. And go to work in it. They're great. It's a great visit over there. If you do get to Stuttgart, I'm sure you have. It's a very kind of precise way of making automobiles. Just for the engineering of it is superb.
Yeah, I've never been to Stuttgart. I've been to seen many a beautiful Porsche collection and have 3 Newman Porsches, but never been to Stuttgart. But I will say this, as long as we're talking about art or philosophy or James Dean or Porsches. Porsche, the reason people really love Porsche is because it sort of transcends a car. There's just more to it. There's a design part of it. There's a history part of it. There's just stuff. There's stuff to it that is not really just about saying I'm a car guy or I like horsepower. There's a finesse to it. There's a heritage to it. Sure. There's just something to it. So, when people say I'm a car guy, and then you go, what do you like? And they go, I like American muscle. You can go, all right. But if someone says I like Porsche, you'll go, okay, that guy understands something. It's more nuanced. He appreciates it on a slightly different level.
Well, that's well put. Yeah, it's more nuanced. It's appreciated on a slightly different level, and the level is the level of quality and completeness, density, stuff like that, rather than just one, aspect. Sort of like multidimensional. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's why the people who are into Porsches are like, it's almost a religion for them because it's much deeper than just a sort of guy or girl with a car. But it's interesting to me because I was telling someone the other day, the whole reason why my car was sponsored by Apple for a season, and it ran at Le Mans in Apple livery. The guys at Apple loved Porsche, and now you kind of picture Apple. Yeah, Steve Jobs and those guys, Wozniak, they were all Porsche fanatics and drove Porsches.
Yeah,
and they wanted they wanted Apple. Apple wanted Porsche to design a computer for them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because they looked at it. They looked at Porsche as a design company, not a car company.
I had a Porsche telephone. I remember they designed when I was on a TV show.
Really?
They designed a Porsche. Yeah, it was a BlackBerry. Yeah, designed by Porsche.
What else do you have coming out, by the way, Paul, that we could keep an eye
sure.
open
Well,
for?
the next one coming out is called "Over Your Dead Body." I guess that comes through the James Dean conversation we're having. Over Your Dead Body. It's a new genre for me anyway. It's called an action comedy. So it's directed by Jorma Taccone with Jason Segel and Tim Oliphant and Juliette Lewis, Samara Weaver. And it's just six of us, and we filmed it. And there's a lot of gunplay and there's a lot of fast driving that I do.
And when's that out, and where would we find it?
Well, it just got finished. It just got released, and it's just had been locked, as they say. And so I think they'll plan a release when you can. It's kind of difficult as movies that want to be in the theater. They have to kind of time it pretty well so that people are, in the mood for going out to the theater.
But that one's hitting the theaters.
Yeah, that's going to hit the theaters and then get streaming. I mean, Any Day Now was in the theater for 2 weeks in select theaters, as independent theater does, and now it's streaming on a lot of platforms. Actually, anydaynowfilm.com, and you can find it.
And
streaming.
Also on Amazon Prime. Paul, thanks for joining us. I hope when the next film comes out, pop back in and continue our conversation.
I enjoyed talking to you, Adam. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing with me. It's great to talk about all the things in life that are kind of cool, and I'm glad to talk to you. Thanks, Adam. Good luck. Yeah, I see you're pretty busy, so. Yeah.
Well, come on out to Laguna Seca one of these days for the historics. You'll see a lot of Porsches there.
That sounds like a good idea.
Thanks, Paul.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, be well.
All right, I should say to people that Dave Asprey's, his book is out as we speak, called Heavily Meditated, and it's available now. He's going to be on next week and give one of the better interviews you've heard in a while, so you can enjoy that. Also, Tacoma coming up this weekend, and Spokane coming up this weekend. Brad Meltzer, Make Magic, name of his book. And until next time, it's Adam for Paul and Brad and Elisha saying mahalo.